I've never heard so much laughter in a webinar talking about standard operating procedures than I have today.
The question's never about software. The question's always about how do I do this? First thing we have to do is align our team. It's not about documenting the process. It's about knowledge transfer. And the purpose of the standard work is to ensure repeatability. For most of us in the rest of the world, that's not what we're doing. So I think that's one of the things that people get hung up on. Great job, guys. We made a quick video. We've got an SOP now. No, you don't. You can guarantee your first attempt isn't going to be good. Do your best to trust your people and put the autonomy for making process changes with them. And in there I talk about light bulb processes, banana processes, and traffic lights. It's an IKEA moment. We've all done that, haven't we?
I know what we should do. Yeah, too late.
Hey there. I started this channel with one goal: to help people grow people. But here's the thing. Growth isn't a solo journey.
The best
leaders,
teams, and businesses
thrive because
they learn and grow together.
And that's what we're building here. So if that sounds like something worth being a part of, hit subscribe, because the more of us there are, the more we can invest in learning together. Let's grow together.
So firstly, welcome everyone. It's great to have you all here, and especially welcome Tom. It's quite an honor, and thank you for getting up so early for us. And Tom, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Super. A little bit about me before we dive in. I was born near a place called Magherafelt in Northern Ireland, and I was lucky enough from there, after growing up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, to go to Birmingham, England, where I studied engineering at university, and I was fortunate enough to get 10 years in automotive supply chain. Birmingham's back then was like the heart of the UK automotive industry, and you had the Japanese transplants coming in around, this is early 90s, and it was a real period of transition for the UK automotive industry, going from not very good British Leyland type practices to being heavily permeated with the Japanese. So at that point, I was working pretty much daily with Nissan, Toyota, Honda, people like that, as well as the European manufacturers. It was a really great experience. I bragged to myself that I was practicing lean before it was even commonly called lean, at least in the UK. I also spent some time in Germany at that time. So from there, I came back to Ireland and I did an MBA at Trinity College Dublin, which is a storied institution. I'm very proud of it. It was a great experience for me. It turned me from a functional person into a general manager, leader type person. It was great. I was lucky enough to participate in a management buyout of this company, O'Lear. We were like a sleeping giant in hydraulics. When I joined, we were about $60 million turnover and not making any money. And 10 years later, we were $200 million in a very profitable business, 16 geographical units, about 650 people. And we made a massive cultural shift from being a collection of friendly competitors, is what we were calling ourselves at the beginning, to a truly global, seamless, functioning organization. So, you know, the kind of organization change I've done, but been part of or led, it goes from hands-on to big stuff like that. And I've never really been a consultant. From there, we sold that company. We exited, I did the fairy tale exit to Parker Hannifin, and we was a millionaire in cash for a while. But then I went into software and I got divorced, and that when we were in software, I was developing products for charity fundraising in general. I didn't really know that much about the market, and yeah, that's a good way to lose money. But so from there, I decided to go back into industry, which is my first love. And when I first did that, I was going into a company to do a transformation. I thought it was a strategic reposition, but it was actually day one, they asked me, we want you to implement lean, and I was horrified. And thankfully for me, I came across 2-second lean at that stage. And yeah, we did a great transformation in that first company. I helped out a couple more companies, started to get a bit of a reputation for being half decent at that. And therefore I wrote the book, Improvement Starts With I. It's a book I'm very proud of. At least 10,000 people have digested that book now. And yeah, it's helped a lot of people. I recommend people check it out. And then I was in my latest adventure, I'm a partner at a company called Lumen Electronics, and we were launching a new product into the market, and my business partner asked me to document the standard processes because I knew a lot about that, and that's where the story really starts. So this is a pre-GembaDocs Tom standard process. This is for a sanitizer product we were making during the crazy period in 2021, etc. And you can see how complicated this is and how time-consuming it was. And this is the way I've done, this kind of work for years. So there was a new one coming up, a new product we were launching at Lumen, and Paddy asked me to document it. I spent a day doing this similar kind of thing here. Thought I'd be a hero showing Paddy what I'd done. And he said, hey, how long did that take you? Don't you have a software company? So that was the impetus for GembaDocs. We built a prototype in a few weeks. It was only meant as a fix what bugs you for us at that early stage. And then when I had the mobile app in my hand, I thought everybody's going to want this. And so what I did then, this is actually the original. If you look to check out the bottom left-hand corner, it's process for F number 1. This is our first GembaDocs SOP. Not the original version, but it's because this is version number 8 of how we clean our bathroom at Lumen, and it's just part of the process. When I did that, I put it on a few groups. I made a little 3-minute YouTube video, and we had enough customers to launch a commercial version of GembaDocs from there. So I think it's a great example of product development and a fix what bugs you and what's really possible. Now we've got thousands of users every day, 30 plus countries, 11 languages. It's great. This is the latest version of that SOP that we use at Lumen. It's really visual and simple, and I still recommend to customers the bathroom's a great place to start. Highly visual, gets people trained in a way of how to use standards and how to create them and how useful they are. And this is just a production. This is actually the product. It's not the original SOP again, but it's the product that kicked off the whole GembaDocs thing, was how we were going to document the work to assemble that product, assemble and test it. And then this is a computer process. I redacted a few things so that people can't steal our stuff, but just an example of my business partner, Paddy, one of the recent uses of GembaDocs. I interact with people on standard processes and have done for 3 years plus now since GembaDocs, ignoring my own previous experience of that. The question's never about the software. The question's always about, how do I do this? How do I get this into my organization? And the analogy I'll use is like King Sisyphus. I don't know if anybody's familiar with King Sisyphus. He's from Greek mythology, and he was considered the smartest human on the planet of his time. And he was always tricking the gods, and he annoyed them so much that they condemned him to the deepest pits of Hades to push this rock up the mountain. And if he ever got it over the top, they'd let him out. But they set it up that it would never happen. So he was always pushing the rock up and just failed at the last minute. And that's, to me, how it feels like if you're implementing standard processes with no methodology. So if we think of our mountain being sloppiness and inconsistency at the bottom, which is where most of us lived before Lean, then we have the top of the mountain where we'd all love to be, world-class, customers are ecstatically happy all the time. And we've got a mountain or a hill, depending on where you're at, to get up, and our process is the rock. If we've got no standard to keep that rock in place, gravity's going to pull the rock down the mountain. And this is the question I'm always getting asked as the CEO of GembaDocs these days. So what we did, I'm working with Brian Meyers on a book for this, because Brian's done the best job with GembaDocs that I've ever seen, and we've hundreds of customers, thousands of users, absolutely stellar. And you've had him on the show, haven't you? So Brian and I are working on a book together on this. And our process framework is this as it says. So the SOP is there to stop the ball falling down the hill. And we use a process. The first thing we have to do is align our team. That's basically get everybody understanding the with them. Do you remember that from my book? What's in it for me? Why should we want to do this? Motivate them, show that it's easy to do. Have some checks and monitors and plans in place. Very basic, to make sure that we're making the progress that we want and everybody's committed. Documenting is simple. It depends on the kind of process, how you document it. For simple processes like changing the printer cartridge, it doesn't really matter how you do it. Anything's going to help. But for anything that's quality or safety critical, we recommend a rule of 2. So you should have 2 sets of eyes on the SOP. It's a great way to invest. It's not about documenting the process. It's about knowledge transfer. And if you do a crappy job at documenting the process, you do a crappy job at knowledge transfer, why did you bother? Next is about implementing it. It's about making these real in your organization at a very basic level. Answer where the question is. At a slightly higher level, integrating the standard processes into the operating system of your company so that they're part of your processes. And then at a highest level, making sure your people are aware, trained, and validated that they understand and you know the competence level through your organization, and that is what's keeping the rope tight really looks like. And then we have an improvement process to push that ball up the hill and eventually get to our world class and make sure we're improving all the time. So that's the basic framework that's going to be in that book, and we're really fleshing that out at the moment. So that's my little 10-minute talk. I'm going to stop sharing because I'm dying to get into you guys' questions. So
yeah, no, thanks for that presentation, Tom. That was awesome. I really like that analogy of the upward slope with the SOPs supporting the boulder on the way up. I really quite like that. In your experience the last few years in GembaDocs, what have you found that the biggest mistake people make when they implementing SOPs?
I think two things. One that stands out is people getting paralyzed by analysis, over planning and over prioritizing. That what I've noticed with the customers that have had the most success take a 2-second lean type approach. We do basic commitments. So, hey, everybody, we've got to have, like, for example, Seaton Matters is a good example. I think at the beginning they had 2 SOPs per month that everybody had to put together, and they nominated a group of facilitators, GembaDoctors they called them, and that was a simple project plan, and there was no prioritization. And that question I get asked all the time is, how do I prioritize? What should I do first? And I just say, yeah, whatever's in front of you, do that. And like people like Brian Meyers, when I visited him last November, 1,000 SOPs in 3 or 4 months, literally transformed the organization. And it was the same approach. And they had focus points where they'd say, right, we're sorting out packaging. So we're getting all our products, everything that's the final SKU, we're going to have a Kanban card and an SOP on the back of it, how to pack it. And so there would be focused, but it was very much, do it as we go. So I think that's one of the things that people get hung up on. You look and you see how they've done nothing in 3 or 4 months because they never just started. So just start is my strong advice.
If you're looking at all your processes and that can very easily overwhelming. And we've sort of done what you said a little bit as well. I've lasted a while just as we've as things have come up and as we've had issues as such or whatever it might be, we take that chance to, okay, is there an SOP? Well, there's not. Okay, let's make one, and then you sort of go through like that, and you look at it in a few months later, and in a heartbeat, you've got yourself 30 SOPs, 40 SOPs, whatever it is. Like, it's just
another thing I'd like to point out is that, like, if you're looking at a relatively complex process, like say that one I showed in the slides there, the assembling that product, you can guarantee your first attempt isn't going to be good. It's not going to be right. So just document the first one. There's a basis. Then go through it again and improve and improve and improve. So again, it's a bit like that paralysis by analysis again. We have to get it perfect. We're touching on a critical point here. We hear the term standard work get talked about a lot, right? What does standard work actually mean? Because it's a Toyota version of standard work, which for most of us in the rest of the world isn't really applicable. So if you're at Toyota and were one of my first customers 30 odd years ago. We had a guy in our plant who was dedicated to creating the standard operating procedures for the Toyota sunroof. That was at that time. Full-time person documenting those. And at that time it was by hand, sketching them out. Like it shows how grey I am. The amount of effort that went into documenting those processes was incredible. And that's when you think of visualize the Toyota assembly line and you watch the guy put the dashboard in, that's not like a GembaDoc that somebody did in 10 minutes or half an hour. That has been analyzed to death. That is optimized. And the operator has to follow it to the letter. His job is to follow that to the letter. He's audited that he's following it to the letter. And the purpose of the standard work is to ensure repeatability. That's the major prime reason why it's there. For most of us in the rest of the world, that's not what we're doing. We're creating knowledge transfer tools so that we can get people up to value quicker. They're like a basis for training. So for example, at Limit Electronics, we have critical processes like test processes and things like that that are in safety critical products. And they have to be followed to the letter. And we have to ensure that our people are trained and validated and that they accept that that's what they're doing and they've signed up. But the vast majority of processes in our company don't look like that. They're not that super safety critical. So it's not about adhering to the standard work. For most of us outside Toyota, they're a knowledge transfer tool. So, put a QR code in a machine so I know how to start it up if Dave's not here. Do you understand what I'm getting at? It's a different reason why we're doing it. And so it's hierarchical. How to change the printer cartridge. I'm not going to audit somebody to say, are you changing it the same way I am? Ooh, do you understand what I'm getting at? And so as you go through, in most businesses, you have a lot of processes that are like basic. And lots of processes you don't need a document at all. I call them light bulb processes, where the outcome's not variable, not particularly variable. Doesn't really matter how much you got there. It's not that important that you have an SOP for that. Anything that's going to help people create flow, and therefore, Dave's not here. I don't know how to change the printer cartridge. Oh, great. There's a QR code thing. I don't have to spend 15 minutes of swearing. You guys heard me swear earlier. You can off with that. That's candor for you. And look up YouTube and find all the stuff. There's an easy answer. That's going to create flow, and we don't need to be too, let's say, uptight about it.
That kind of answers one of my other questions a little bit as well. How do you get people to actually stick with SOPs and follow them? Because we have often that they're like, oh, I don't really want to follow the pictures, or I don't want to have to read the instructions. So how would you approach that sort of situation?
Yeah, again, it depends. You don't really care that much if they follow the printer cartridge SOP to the letter. But do you have processes where that super matters? And if you do, then you need to define that. And you have to reinforce that with your people. So our example at Lumen Electronics, critical test processes. No, you're not going to make up how you want to do it. The engineering team decide how that process is done, and your job's to follow it. And that's not a rainbow namby-pamby, let's all kumbaya together. We've got processes that have to be followed. Your job's to do it. I'm sorry, but I hope you understand where it's appropriate, you're doing that. 95% of our processes, the guys can have a bit of freestyling where they're doing them. If, as long as the outcome is the same, then not really that bothered. And the first time he's using SOP is really to train that person up. So you've got a new guy come in, you've the original expert, he's the prime person who documented the process to start with. Now we got Joe wants to learn that process. We use the SOP for that. It's also a great auditing opportunity for the SOP when you're using it for training. So you can say, oh, we don't do it like that anymore. We use a different tool. That's changed, whatever. And you update it on as you're carrying out the training exercise. But that's the primary objective. And then Joe will use that SOP as much as he needs to get to value. And this is another one. I'm going to hit on one of your other questions. I'm going to answer it now. Talked about video. Let's use that example. So we've got that critical assembly process. There's like 40 steps. Sorry, a video is pointless. Nobody's going to use that. How useful is it? So Joe's learning how to assemble that complex thing. And he's there. So you made the video. First of all, that was quick. Great job, guys. We made a quick video. We've got an SOP now. No, you don't. Because now if anything's going to change, I challenge anybody who uses videos regularly for complex processes, show me how many times that changed. Because the answer is none. It's never changed. It's a monument. And that's the problem when you're using anything over just a minute. Nobody's ever going to go back and update that thing because they're not going to do it all over again, and it's hard to edit. So when you've got a step-by-step process, now it maybe took a little bit longer to put together, but now if I need to change anything, it's there. If Joe is now, say I'm training him and I walk away for 20 minutes because I get called away, Joe has that process and he can use it as much as he needs to. He can taper off because it's step by step. Oh, I know how to do those 6 steps. Carry on. Ah, it's a bit stuck. All right, there it is. It's step 8. Imagine trying to use a video for that. And that's when the whole thing just falls to pieces. To me, it's just wallpaper. Having a bunch of videos for your complex processes is just a false security. So people think, oh, I've got all my processes documented. How often are people using them? And do you really use them? Like, are they serving the purpose, which is the purpose back to that previous rant? It's a knowledge transfer tool. It's to help people get to value. That's what you're doing. You're not Toyota. Sorry to break the news to you. You're not Toyota. You didn't have a team of production engineers who sat together for weeks optimizing how that dashboard went into the thing. And it's not that critical. Don't fool yourself that it's that critical. It's fallen to the letter. Because maybe that guy might have a slightly better process for doing it, right? I'm having fun. I hope you guys are having fun.
That's awesome. Thanks for that. Pretty much answered all my questions. Probably move on to Edwin.
My question is, how do you strike a balance between adhering to the SOP to maintain the consistency and then challenging them to drive continuous improvement? So to improve the standard. How do you keep to the standard but then continuously improve it and not fall back down?
Again, if we go to the Toyota analogy. So at Toyota, the process is fixed by engineering teams and the operator's jobs to follow it. And we got a standard. And if anybody wants to change it, you have to go through a real process to, that's not a simple thing. I want to change the screw to hold the dashboard in. That's not somebody does in Toyota. That doesn't take 5 minutes to get that process changed. That's a big engineering change, approval, validation, etc. Right? That's Toyota world. And there, the standard work is to provide that basis and the repeatability of the process, right? But in our world, back to where the rest of us live, right? I always recommend that one of the beauties of GembaDocs, when we first created it, it's quite just hopefully a funny story for you. When we did the first version, it's like, oh, it's so cool, it's so easy to create. Now, how do we edit these things? Oh my God. So I had to come up with a way to make them easy to edit. And we managed to do that. But that was our attitude. And hopefully you get that's my attitude about most things in life. Just get on with it. Yeah. Get out there, do it. What I recommend to GembaDocs customers is put the autonomy for the process as close to the process that people add in the value as possible. Do your best to trust your people and put the autonomy for making process changes with them.
Right.
That would always be my advice. And only where you're concerned that there are major risks for safety and quality should you put it through some kind of formal approval process, which we have in GembaDocs. We have a formal approval process in GembaDocs. But it does slow things down, to your question. The more barriers you have, the slower, and it also kind of divorces ownership, which is a huge deal as well. That whenever somebody else owns my process, your chances of it being used and followed and being a useful tool is less. So for me, those are the sort of two extremes. Toyota production system, nothing, no changes are made. Nobody's doing a 2-second improvement at Toyota, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And it has to go through a formal process change procedure. But for the rest of us, we can. And it's important that you give the autonomy to your people at the front line to make those process changes, update the documents, keep them trustworthy, and give the SOP integrity. And only where you really know or you perceive a safety or quality risk do you put in approval processes and things like that to let's say, check and validate what changes are made. And by the way, just to do that, you can color code, for example. CD Matters, I think, did a great job with this. They're using red and yellow and white in order to indicate to the operator this is like a critical one or not, and so on.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing that Ryan says in his book is that you got to get your people to do the SOPs, so then they buy into actually using it and following it. But then also when they're comfortable with it, they're not going to be using it every time.
That's correct.
Unless it's a critical. But then while they're doing it, they're probably going to go, hey, I've actually improved it. Let me go back to the SOP and compare what I've done now to what's actually on the SOP and let me see if it needs an update.
It's a simple fact in life. Nobody likes to be told what to do. If you've got people that are carrying that process out every day and you don't involve them and preferably make them own the SOP, you're a fool. Yeah, it's again our attitude in Lean is respect for people. So you're not respecting your people if you're imposing a set of handcuffs on them that they weren't involved in creating.
Yeah.
You're only going to create resentment and people are going to hate the things. So that's where it comes back to the alignment part of that little framework that we're working on, is that everybody has to understand why we're doing this. Why would I want these things? And again, sorry, that's another problem I see, is that whenever people don't understand why we're doing it to create flow and to knowledge transfer and upskill our people. We're doing it to get better consistency. We're doing it to take struggle away from you. When this is done well, we don't have the Dave's not here, nobody can operate the cardboard machine nonsense. When it's done well, everybody wins as usual. It's like Lean. It's just like overall Lean culture change.
Awesome work, thank you. Move on to Phil.
I've never heard so much laughter in a webinar talking about standard operating procedures than I have today.
But isn't it true with Lean? I think if you're not laughing a lot with our approach to Lean, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
100%. So, yeah. So my question for you is, so a lot of what we do is servicing medical equipment and quite complex pieces of equipment where we only see them, on a maybe once or twice a year. So we might only have a lot of unique pieces of equipment. And you answered a little bit of the question when you talked about the Toyota versus the knowledge transfer that we have. And we get stuck between the new guy who sort of knows nothing and he's going from absolutely no knowledge on how the equipment works, let alone, how to fix it and service it, to a skilled technician. And there's lots of steps in doing the service work, making sure that he's got it. So the new guy wants to have every step broken down, to the nth detail so that he doesn't miss anything. However, the experienced guy takes that document and it's got just so much information in it that it is an unusable document that would take half an hour to read. Therefore, I'm not going to use the document. So where do you find the balance between brevity, keeping it short and concise, to breaking down? And we've swung, from a simple checklist, which is 1 page long, great for the experienced technicians knows what to do, to basically a 30-page document that tells you how to do every step on the document, which, yeah.
Right.
Solve my problem.
It's definitely pretty extreme. I think, first of all, if you've got common sub-processes that are in that process, if you like, so say for example, I'll use a Lumen Electronics example. If it's how to crimp a wire or how to solder a joint, we don't need to go through how to solder a joint in every single SOP where we solder a joint. So you can have a joint soldering SOP and link that as a child SOP to the overall. And you'll probably find that you've got lots of things like that in your, how you, I don't know, change a filter or whatever on that piece of kit. In that family of kit, you've got a filter change thing. And that's probably a terrible example. Hopefully the analogy is carrying through. And so then you can create sub-processes that people only need to dive into if they need to. That's one way of making very long, complex processes a little more brief. So that's one way of doing it. The second thing, though, just a general point, asking yourself, why am I doing the SOP again? What's it for? Who's it for? What value is it serving? Is it so that we can more easily have less experienced people doing the process? If that's the reason, then the document needs to reflect that. And then for the experienced person, back to these aren't handcuffs. If you know how to do it, you don't have to get the SOP out and look through it. If you already know how to do the job and we're confident you're super well trained and you're competent at doing it, you don't need the SOP, do you? Because you know how to do it. The challenge is for the dude who doesn't know how to do it. And he needs a tool that's going to help him get to value. Boiling the answer down, it's whatever the purpose of the document is in your business. So for example, if it's the test protocol for something that somebody's going to die if it's not properly carried out, then that needs to be concrete in steel. That's how you do it. If it's frequently carried out, we verify that you're competent to carry it out in that way. And if it's infrequently carried out, you have to have the SOP with you every time you do it. At Toyota, they're not getting the SOP out to see how they put the dashboard in, because they're trained and validated that their competence is appropriate to do it. So that's the link there. Whereas for a lot of us, we either have to do that or we need the SOP out for those supercritical processes that are infrequently carried out.
That's awesome. Hey, thanks, Tom. Really appreciate that.
People. Over to you, Sean.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I think I've sort of needed a SOP here for all of our questions, because in a roundabout way, they're all the same sort of question, and mine's going to be no different. I'm taking mine down to the basic. Instead of like Phil's 30-page document, mine's the other way. Where do you draw the line on common sense? If we use the analogy that most people use, which is the bathroom, first place everyone starts, there's an SOP for cleaning the bathroom, but common sense tells you don't need an SOP for how to clean the actual toilet. So where do we draw the line in we don't need an SOP because it's common sense, or the process itself is so simple it doesn't need one?
Yeah, Sean, overall, that's the real objective, is that everything's so simple to do, we don't need an SOP. That's the perfect world. So you get the process so good, so simple that anybody can carry it out. Like I wrote that little book, pointing at it by accident. This one, great processes. And in there, I talk about light bulb processes, banana processes, and traffic lights. I'm trying to keep it like kindergarten level. Light bulb processes like cleaning the inside of the toilet bowl. Like the truth is, there will be people on the planet who don't know how to do that, unfortunately, in the world that we live in today. And common sense is also not common.
I was going to say that. I was actually going to say that.
It's really not that common. So when you do your first bathroom SOP and people are using it, the answer is in the outcome. Are we getting what we expect? And if it's not, then we might have a training issue with somebody that needs to be trained how to do the toilet thing. We need a bathroom SOP because, like in my world, my son's version of cleaning the bathroom is not the same as my wife's version of cleaning the bathroom. And when we're at business, we're setting that as a task we're all doing, we need to have clarity and consistency. So that's why the bathroom SOP is needed in our world. And if we have issues and we need to dive deeper with certain people, then that's what we have to do. But we can't, it doesn't make sense to me to go 3 swipes to the left of the toilet brush, 4 swipes to the right, and good is no poo on it, bad is poo. Like, we're not going to get to that level. But yeah, if we're checking the outcome and we've issues, then I think that becomes more of a training issue. Just use that basic example.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Great question. And last but not least, Matt Loveday.
Thanks. I guess you've already sort of answered my particular question. It was about the videos. Where do you draw the line between, okay, we need to have a documented process, or will a video suffice?
Well, let's dive into it deeper, though, Matt. It's a great question. Videos have a place for simple things. If you can watch a video and 3 or 4 steps and go, oh, I know how to turn on the projector, that's okay. I have no issue with that whatsoever. And videos are useful for nuanced processes. So my favorite example, we have to de-biscuit, we call it, a printed circuit board. So a printed circuit board comes out and there's edges to it and you have to break them off. And there's a sequence to it, but there's also like you just have to just get it like this. It's very, very difficult to describe in a step-by-step image. So we have video steps for those things and those kind of processes so that you can describe the nuance with more information, let's put it like that you can convey in a video. So it's not like an absolute never use video, because I hate dogma, full stop, in anything. Answer to most questions, skillfully answered it, or it depends. So hopefully that's getting a wee bit into that side of things. And for me, I just despise long videos. I really do. I think they're monuments. They're hard to edit. Nobody edits them ever. I challenge that. I'd love to hear from people who regularly update their videos, because it'll prove me wrong. And then the fact that more difficult to taper off your requirements as you learn that task and you become more familiar with it. It's much more difficult to taper off what you need from a continuous video versus a step-by-step document.
Yeah, I mean, for me, for a new person, I want them to be able to see the process, explain all of the safety things. If they've walked into the factory for the first time, explain this process as an overview, and then use the GembaDoc sheet to prompt them.
I think that's really good. Yeah, you're making it. That's a good point. So if you want to just give a quick overview, but generally, if it's say a specific process, somebody will be given that overview to that person. Like, it'll not just be in most cases, it's not just there's the SOP, follow it, and let's hope it works out for you. You usually have someone that's training them. And it's, again, even the methodology in how you train people, I've seen that's been such a problem. I'm always recommending the training within industry 4-step process for how to train somebody, prepare the operator, understand where they are, where their mind is, and how much they know, and then show them step by step what to do. Then get them to talk back to you. Yeah, I understand. Get them to show you, get them to describe the key points, make sure they understand. Taper off the learning or the teaching as they get more skillful. And you got to remember, again, a lot of our lean stuff is coming from high volume industries. So again, that's okay if you're building 100 things an hour. But what if you only do that once a month? You're only going to get to do that once, and then the next time they come, then the process is repeated again, but to a lesser level, maybe. And if you don't have the SOP in those circumstances, you really are in trouble, because there's no backstop to stop that person. Oh, it's been a month since I did that. I know about you people, but like if it's been more than 3 days and I haven't done something, I've forgotten. So having that reference to go back to when, all right, now it's a month later and I'm doing it again. You still need your guy there to help you through the process, but each time you're getting more skillful at it. And the best line on that card is, if the trainee hasn't learned, the instructor hasn't taught. Getting that into the culture of your business, instead of that guy's stupid because he didn't get it first time. And then you're into this survival of the fittest kind of, nobody survives in your company unless they're a shark. Right? So that's just a critical point. Because at the end of the day, you heard me talk about knowledge transfer. You've got the basic, oh, right, that helps me know how to do that. But you have to learn how to train and get that into your business.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Last up, Tony. Tony, have we got any questions in the chat room from anyone else?
Matthew asked, how many steps is too many? And is it better to break a long SOP up into several?
Yeah, I think it is. I do think it is. It's like if you end up with like 100+ step SOPs, just from a practical point of view, managing all of that, and even if you're using them digitally to load them and unload them, if you've got a crappy Wi-Fi connection and stuff like that. So generally, I just keep them below 50 and break them up. And what we do in our own at Lumen Electronics, I don't recall seeing an SOP that's more than 50 steps. Our lads will generally break that up into phase 1 of the process, phase 2 of the process, phase 3 of the process, if you get me. And it's just easier to manage all around.
Edwin had another question. It says, do you advise making SOPs from day one of implementing Lean?
Yeah, I would. I would definitely. I think it's a really useful thing that everybody can get their heads around. And I've seen it now. I'll use Brian Meyers as an example again. Outrageous lean implementation, dare I say it, if you're watching his content of late. Absolutely incredible. And he was able to get his people fully engaged into that process. And GembaDocs, I tried not to make this a GembaDocs sales thing. We're talking about processes, but and I'm really serious. No, I'm really am. Is getting that ease of use and being able to engage everybody is totally critical. Back when I was doing this pre-GembaDocs and messing around with spreadsheets, this is deep. So at that first 2-second link company, we wanted standard processes for how to turn on, turn off, change over, load programs for like 50 machines. Plus, actually, I was that guy, me, every afternoon down there, handwritten notes, taking pictures of my phone, back to my office, doing the Excel thing, up and down, and an utter waste of time because I owned the processes. They didn't own the processes. Tom's a nice guy. Like Tom, he's good. I end up sticking this A4 sheet on the machine. Nobody gives a toss. That's the truth. If I was back in that place with GembaDocs, right, team leaders, get together. We're going to document the process, turn on, shut down, load the programs, change it over. And I want it all done this month. Right? And you lot are doing it. Can you get the different dynamic that's at play there? And anybody can do it. So in that circumstance, it's such a great thing to do. And like, oh, I don't know how to make an improvement. It's an improvement. And every time you make a standard process, especially when you do that rule of 2 thing I mentioned, you'll end up with a better process just through the process of documenting it. Because 2 people go, I don't do it like that. I do it like this. Oh, do you? Oh, that's awesome. I'll do it like that now. And you're fostering that whole, you're giving it juice. It's a simple thing that most people can grasp and they can get engaged in your lean process. So no, absolutely. And that's those, hopefully I've given clear reasons why that's a sensible thing to be doing.
I am the guy that runs one process every 9 months. So we build hydro machines. It takes us about 9 months to put one back together. And we're routinely now having the conversation with ourselves. Now, how did we do that on the last unit? Power station has somewhere between 2 and 8 units in it. So we do the same process roughly somewhere between 2 and 8 times. I'm definitely contemplating on the next station that we do on the first unit saying, right, anywhere where we think it's a tricky process, spend the time and document it on the first time we do it. And then we at least know what we're going to do next time.
Driving one, conservatories and orangey rooms are the same. This happens used to happen all the time, still does happen. Somebody wants a replacement window for that thing we did 10 years ago. Who knows how to do that window? And like he's describing like 2 days of downtime in production while they're trying to work all that stuff out. And that used to happen like every 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And now every time that happens, they document the whole process so that next time when somebody asks for that weird window, it's not that whole palaver's gone. And even for me, my own favorite GembaDoc application is we do this quarterly tax claim thing for Lumen Electronics. And it used to take me 2 days of swearing every 3 months because it's such a horrible process. Copy from this spreadsheet to that spreadsheet. It's a government thing, so it's obviously terrible. I did that 2 or 3 times myself, and I'm the founder of GembaDocs. And then it was, why don't I do a GembaDoc for this? and now every time I do it, I get like a little dopamine hit of I cheated the man because it takes me 2 or 3 hours instead of 2 or 3 days. Well, it wouldn't have taken me 3 days, but 2 days, yeah. And because I don't have to do all that thinking every time, I've taken my thinking from last time, frozen it, and now I can get it out of the freezer and check it out again. To me, it's once you do that once or twice yourself, it's a great, great juice to do it more and more. So taking those, especially.
Oh yeah, I mean my guys get it. Yeah, like we were talking about it. They put a whole cover that's like 5 meters diameter together perfectly. Lined it up within to 0.2 of a millimeter and everything. Did the bolts up and realized that they couldn't get the dowels in after they'd put the bolts in. Another 2 days.
It's an IKEA moment. We've all done that, haven't we?
I know what we should do. Yeah, too late. All right, we've got a few more questions coming through. So Sean says, I suppose the question is, would a SOP work to show you how to create a GembaDoc or an alternative of a quick YouTube video on it would work? Sorry, Sean, maybe you can...
Sean, no, I get Sean's question. It's something that we're definitely addressing this year. It's a fairly common question. How do I write a GembaDoc? How do I write an SOP for this? This year we've taken we're going to create some professionally produced training material to support customers with those basic things. And we'll have a free level which will answer all the basic stuff, and then we're going to do an advanced practitioner one that people can pay for. So and have a certificate and everything else with it. It's a very valid question. It's one of the most common GembaDocs, believe it or not, is how to create a GembaDoc that our customers produce. So no, we're going to plug that gap, and it's a very, very valid question. But one of the reasons it's tricky, like there are basic principles we've talked about today, but every organization is different. So what are you requiring this GembaDoc to do is one of the most important questions. So, back to the categorization, doesn't really matter that much if we've a QR code in the printer that wasn't there before. It's going to help improve flow, even if it's terrible. It's going to be a help.
Normally it got written because somebody screwed something up the first time, right?
Yeah. So you know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons it is tricky. So for me, it's going to be like I'm intending to create content around the different levels of what's this for, and therefore how do we write it? Because people are using all kinds of different techniques right now. And that doesn't make it wrong. If it works for you, great. But I think the answer at the moment is, what does it mean in your organization? And get together and decide what are we doing? What does it mean for us? How should we approach it?
Yeah, I'm gonna quickly just jump in there with that question that I asked and put my hand up and say I downloaded the free trial the month, and I think I'm up to about week 3. I've opened it 3 times, and I still haven't started creating one yet.
There you go. Life also gets in the way. You're doing other things. So yeah, have a go. Drop me a line if you need anything, Sean.
Yeah, well, that's why I was asking the question about the videos, or is there a GembaDoc for creating a GembaDoc?
All right, okay, I get you now. Yeah, okay, but I would advise just have a go. Hit the create document button and follow your nose. And one of the improvements we're going to make shortly is, at the moment there's example SOPs in there. We're going to change it just to simple, like make a cup of tea. So what does make a cup of tea look like? And get people to easily understand, oh, that's what I can do with this. And then like a little tutorial to go with it. But it's a good example if you want to try it out. Pick something really simple and just go step 1,
no worries.
Get tea bag. Step 2, boil kettle. Step 3, put tea bag in cup. Step 4, put water in. And if you're Irish, because we're really fussy about making tea, it's like, we're other level. People putting milk in before the tea bag and stuff like that.
I'm a coffee snob, so I know.
Any of the Americans listening to this won't get this at all.
We'll go to Caleb's question. How would you get people involved in making docs if the people struggle to use a phone? I think you do it for them, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's Tony. Great answer. Because even in general, it's like if you're doing complicated things, just getting nominating a small number of people in your company, the Gemba doctors, back to that analogy again, they're the people you go to get the process documented. So you don't have to have every single person creating them themselves, but they have support to get it done. And also, in those circumstances, if people have issues, well, first of all, there's other cultural issues at play, obviously, with those things going on. But to have dedicated work devices on the shop that are for this purpose is another solution to that. So we're not asking people to use their personal devices. You've got, areas with, it's not an expensive thing to do these days. Go to your secondhand phone shop and buy some, 2 or 3 year old iPhones and pepper them around your shop. It's easily done.
Tom, you mentioned, obviously, you went to see Brian do all these GembaDocs. What is one thing that we could do tomorrow that maybe we're not doing that you think has been unique and it could transform our SOP creations?
Well, the one thing he did that I didn't see often before is almost everybody has a user license. So there's 47 people and he's like 30 licenses. So, and he has respect the people at the ultimate. So all his people are creating, well, not all is an exaggeration, but almost all are creating SOPs. And so I hadn't
Okay.
seen that done before. And it obviously helps with the speed of the rollout compared to if you've got like a bottleneck of a few people who are responsible for getting them all done. Brian's done an amazing job and it truly has transformed his business. But it's all about the appropriateness for your organization. I think it's reckless when people make blanket statements about you should do this because this might not be appropriate for your business. You're the business leader, you need to work it out. If your business culture is ready, like Brian's was, do that. Let your people loose on it. Get everything documented quickly and get it embedded in your, like another critical thing Brian did was that a lot of the internal Kanban cards are using the SOPs. So it's literally part of the process. So they're not just wallpaper. They're an integral part of getting the job done. But to me, it's where your organization's at. For most people, it's going to be the facilitator route, I would say. You know, that you're taking like back to my original 2-second link company, if I was doing this now, I'd probably have 7 or 8 people that are the GembaDoc facilitators. Everybody needs to go to them and get it done over the course of a month, and we're going to roll it out. And in three months, you're going to have the back of the job broke.
I think that about wraps it up. I think the chat room looks empty. I think so. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Especially thank you very much, Tom. You're a lot of information, gave us a lot to think about, and really appreciate your time.
Absolute Paul, and a complete honor to be here, considering all the other people that you've had. So thank you very much for asking.
Last night I was actually researching, and I don't know if you know, but Gemba is spelled wrong. Did you know that?
Is it? I didn't know that, obviously.
It's actually Genba.
How is it spelled then?
Genba. So Gen, it's literally translated, it's real or actual in Japanese. But because it's Genba, it just sounds Gemba. So the N and the M.
Because everybody spells the Gemba in that way. And I've seen Genba Canry and things like that.
Yeah.
And, so I've seen the word Genba as well. I have.
Like you get Genchi Genbutsu, which means go and see, Genchi Genbutsu, which is the actual place, the actual product, the actual data. So anyway, just
I learned something this morning as well. I'm not going to make that improvement suggestion to the team. Lads, we're going to have to go back to everything. Change that.
Redo everything.